Today, I have an artist that has done some very impressive stuff, from putting out an album that was hailed a must have for any metal fan. He's a Dean guitar endorser. He's worked with labels, done tons of stuff from all over the world. I have the amazing Dave Reffett. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today, Dave.
Thank you, man. Pleasure.
First off, let's take a step back. Every good story starts with once upon a time. So, when and why music, and even better yet, why metal music?
It's a good question. I think it was about 13. My sister, Amanda, my older sister, was like crazy into music. She was really, really into like 90s alternative rock and stuff, Counting Crows, Live, stuff like that. And I used to say to her, "Why do you waste your money on music? It seems like such a waste of time to me." Which is funny now because music's my whole life. But she would always say, "You don't know what you're talking about. Check this out. Check this out." And she'd give me stuff to listen to. And she gave me a classical tape. It was Mahler. That was the first thing where I was like, wow, that's really cool. And then that made me, I got into the school band, started playing like, I went through a bunch of different instruments until I found like the tuba. I was actually pretty good at that. I liked it. But then my music teacher had a guitar in his office. And I was like, what's this thing? I really dug it. I just fell in love with it. Didn't even really know what it was. Um, and then I started to get a little bit into country music here and there on the radio. But what really, really did it was Metallica on MTV. Real late at night, I saw Metallica on MTV, and I just freaked out. I was like, holy cow. And so that's what made me go out and get my first guitar. And I just went at it like crazy. I just played all the time. And then I started to hang out with the heavy metal kids, and they're like, dude, check out Pantera, check out Kiss, check out Megadeth and Maiden and all these bands. And so the rest is history. I fell in love with the art that is heavy metal.
Very cool, very cool. I got to ask also, on your resume, Berklee College of Music, I would love to hear how all of that come together.
With Berklee, I think I was about 16. I was still in high school, and I found out that they did this summer program, and I looked at all the impressive roster of people that they had, Dream Theater and stuff like that. And my music teacher was really into Dream Theater, so I knew that they were good and that sort of thing. I didn't know much about them, so I decided to give it a try, this summer program thing, and ended up going 2 years in a row to that. It was like a little 1 week program that they had, and I ended up getting a partial scholarship to go to the school for real, which was great. And so I really had to buckle down, and you know, I was accepted to the school. I'm coming there as a student. I could not read one note of music. I got in on talent. And it's a rude awakening when you get there and you realize what you have to do, and you can't even read music. so,
Damn.
so it was cool, man. It was cool, and it was like man up or get out of here kind of thing. I had to really buckle down, and there were some courses that a lot of the stuff came really naturally to me, but like reading and sight singing and ear training, things like that, I really had to work at. You know, Similar to drummers that are there. You have drummers that have never, even if they can read drum music really good, they've never had to look at a piece of music and sing it and conduct it at the same time. So even if they're like Neil Peart, now they're in a situation they're not familiar with. So it's a cool school. I loved it. I loved being there, and I got to play with so many cool guys. Mike Mangini, who's in Dream Theater now. They used to pay me to be like a background musician for him while he taught other kids in the summer program. So it was sort of like I had come full circle. And then he ended up playing on my album. So pretty cool.
Holy crap. Wow, that is very impressive. Wow. I was reading also that you've worked at labels too, kind of on the other side of things. I would love to hear all about that.
Yeah, you have to figure out what major you're going to go into at that school. And, some people do the performance major, and that's cool. Like if you can become a killer player by being a performance major, because you have to go through 4 courses of whatever your instrument is, and the performance major dudes do 8. But what I started to see was a lot of these guys who didn't focus on the other side, they didn't learn the business side. They didn't get as far, in my opinion. Like so I knew you have to know how this whole game is played, or it's not going to work out as good for you. So I decided to do the business thing because I already kind of knew where I wanted to go with my playing. I knew what I wanted to say. I knew the music I wanted to make. So I did the business thing, and then after college, some opportunities came about, and I got to go work at Sanctuary Records, which I loved as a fan. I loved because at the time they had Megadeth and Anthrax and Leonard Skinner and Kiss, and like it was just like the dream situation. But when I got there, it was falling apart. Like it was like financially done. It was still impressive to see what they did because they had a merchandising division called Bravado, which is most of your concert T-shirts that you see. Bravado owns it. And they had a management division that had Guns N' Roses, Judas Priest, Elton John, you name it. I heard that what really ruined them was Beyonce's dad, who was her manager when she was in Destiny's Child. I heard that he had free reign to sign anybody he wanted to. And so he signed a lot of acts and none of them made any money. So that was one of the things that put the nail in the coffin. Also, piracy was, horrible at that time. Still is.
Oh, yeah.
So when Sanctuary, when I was just like, we put out that Iron Maiden, A Matter of Life or Death album. We put that out, and that was really cool. But after that, I could just tell, man, this isn't the best situation. So I made some calls, and I went over to EMI, specifically at Virgin. EMI owns Capitol, Virgin, Blue Note, all kinds of stuff like that. But I was at Virgin, and I was in the marketing and radio promotions division, and I loved it, man. We got to work on so many cool records. Korn, See You on the Other Side was a big album. Meatloaf, Bad Out of Hell Bad Out of Hell 3 was a really big album. The Stones, all kinds of stuff. So I took it very seriously. I was the first one in, the last one out every day. Like I really believed in it. And I'll never forget it. I learned a lot. Learned a whole lot.
Very cool. Very impressive. A few years ago, you released a damn impressive album called Shredding the Envelope with a guest list that would seriously blow away even the most stuck-up listener. I would love to take a few and just hear how all of that come together.
Cool. There's a lot of stuck-up listeners, aren't there?
Couple.
Couple billion. The way that came about was right out of college. After I had done some of the label stuff and all that, I was actually offered a gig at this management company. There was a management firm. Sometimes I still kick myself for not taking it. It was they had a lot of really big R&B and rap acts and stuff. And it was pretty good money. But my thinking was, man, that's not a whole lot of money when you consider you're going to have to live in Manhattan or live in Brooklyn or whatever. And then on the other side of that, I had been working so hard promoting other people's music that my music had suffered. Like I would pick up a guitar and be like, man, I suck. I can't play anymore. so I kind of had to make a decision. I'm like, do you want to be somebody that is at a desk promoting somebody else, making somebody else's dreams happen, or do you want to go get your dreams? And so I decided to do my music, and I put this album together, and I kind of just started to think, I was in the pre-production stage, and I was like, well, I already know Mike. I already know Mangini. I already played with him at the Berkeley thing. So I got him to play on it, which I was lucky to do because I would never get him now. He's in such a big band like Dream Theater now. I would imagine he's not allowed to do other stuff anymore. And then I was going to a guitar clinic of Badio's, who's always been one of my guitar heroes. And I asked him to be on it. And once he had checked out the music and all that, he was really into it. And that was, man, that was 6 or 7 years ago or something. And now he's one of my best friends, so it's really cool. And I wrote a song called Juggernaut that's going to be on his new Greatest Hits album. And then I was on this other song he did called 8 Pillars of Steel, which is also on there. And then with Lynch, that was somebody that I always looked up to. And I had a contact for his tech through a mutual friend or something. And so we ended up talking and ended up making that happen. And what else? Who else is on that one? Stump was an old professor of mine. Poland was always one of my big heroes, like Peace Selva, Who's Blind, is one of my favorite albums ever.
Yes.
And then I knew Drover because I remember on Blabbermouth, he was going to give lessons. And I booked a lesson with him, and I took a bus up there to Canada to do it. And what was funny was about a week after I booked the lesson, the rumors started to float around that he was leaving the band. So when I get up there, I'm like, dude, you got to get me an audition with Megadeth. he was like, dude, you're definitely qualified. He's like, but he said they're not too happy with me, as you can imagine. I'm leaving the band, So, but I had to ask, right? I had.
Oh, hell yeah!
And and I know Ellefson. Ellefson's really cool. He's a great guy. Who else is on the album? And then I played bass on it, and I think that's everybody. But yeah, man, it was a really, really fun album to make, and I'm glad I made the decision I did. Because I'd rather have to work way harder on my own music than to have a cushier job that is something I don't really enjoy. Because the music that we were going to be doing in that management firm, like I said, was just not my cup of tea. And but what was funny is, like a week after I turned down the job, one of their artists was #1 on the Billboard 200.
Oh, crazy, man.
So I was like, maybe I should have took that.
Right on.
Right.
You've also, such an impressive career all the way around, but you've also done another aspect of all of this, writing like magazines, stuff like that. I would love to hear how all of that come about.
Since I was a little kid, Guitar World magazine meant a lot to me. I picked up the guitar. I took a few lessons, and I probably took like 5 lessons, and then I would bring a song to the guy and be like, hey man, I want to learn this song. And I would watch him learn it by ear. So once I knew you could play by ear, I was like, holy cow. And I would go to these little grocery stores with my mom when I was a little kid, and I saw Guitar World, and I started to subscribe to all of those. So that was my learning. Guitar Player, Guitar World, they used to have this one called Guitar School, all these different ones. And so I owe a lot to those. So for me, it's a great honor all these years later to be working with those magazines. And my first encounter with that was I had sent them some stuff, and Guitar World is such a juggernaut that it's kind of one of those things where you send it in and you're probably not going to hear anything. And but they got back to me, hey man, do you want to come in and do some Bet You Can't Play This Is? You ever seen those Bet You Can't Play This?
Hell yeah, I have.
so they called me for that, and I had like pneumonia, dude. I was in bad shape. I was all jacked up. But when Guitar World, when they call you, you don't turn it down. You get up and you do it. So I went down there. I looked like ass, and I just I did it, and it was great. I did 2 or 3 of those, and I was in this Jimmy Page special edition 3D issue and all kinds of stuff. And then I was in this other one with Zakk Wylde and what's his name, Alexi Leo, and then that led to me doing some celebrity interviews for them and different things like that, and then online columns. I did a column on heavy metal scales scales to use for heavy metal guitar. That one blew up. And they use it all the time. So that's really cool. And then I've been in a bunch of different ones from all around the world, Italy, all over Asia, Mexico. Been on the cover of different ones. So that's really, really fun. I love it.
Very cool. The other day, I was because I'm a gearhead all the way around. I love guitars, amps, all the toys. I was just bouncing around looking at guitars, and I was on the Dean website, and there's a picture of you holding this just gorgeous black V, nice Floyd Rose on it. I would love to hear how your works with Dean come together.
Yeah, so to backpedal, when I did the album, I did the entire album on a Gibson Flying V. I love that guitar. And then I got a deal with Esoteric. They signed me and they did 3 different signature models based on me and stuff. But it was apparent that company maybe didn't have the funding to go all the way and that sort of thing. And then that led to Legator, which is a great company. I use their stuff. I've been on the cover of magazines with their stuff, and I still like those guys very much. But the Dean offer happened, and it was just a no-brainer. Legator had said we're going to do a bunch of guitar clinics and things like that, and I think they definitely would have delivered, but not as fast as I maybe would have liked. And then when Dean came along, like I said, it was just a no-brainer. I mean, they have Dimebag and Michelangelo and Dave Mustaine and basically everybody. And so it's a dream to be at Dean if you can make it happen. And so I'm part of the Dean family now. And that guitar, that's one of the few ones they sent me. That one's killer. That's my favorite guitar right now. It's a Dean. They call it the Dean number 11 Custom V, and it's got a gold real Floyd Rose. It's just sick. It plays better than any Gibson V I ever had. And if you're really into Vs, also check out the Michael Schenker Vs that they make are sick. He left Gibson and never came back too. So that's really saying something.
Agreed 100%. Actually, speaking of the Michael Schenker V, I've got the one right here, the Dean, the one with the flames, like the yin yang flames on both sides. I freaking love that guitar.
Cool. Yeah, they're great, man. They're really, really cool. And everybody there is so great. Such good guys. The owner, Elliot, you probably already know, but he's a killer bassist too. And he plays bass for Uli John Roth, Michael Schenker, Michelangelo Badio, Vinnie Moore. He's a badass bass player.
Very nice, very nice. Well, you're also working with Floyd Rose now and have some really impressive stuff that'll be coming up with that. I would be excited to hear how that come together.
Yeah, with Floyd Rose, the Floyd had already came on that guitar, and I was already with Stone Tone. Stone Tone signed me, and I didn't quite know what to make of those things. I was like, okay, it's made of rocks or whatever, and you put it on the thing. I was a little skeptical. I didn't, you never know what's going to be gimmicky and what's the real deal. And as soon as I put this thing on, I was like, wow, it's the real deal. It just, because I do a lot of whammy bar squeals like Dimebag or Eddie, some of my heroes, and I can tell the difference. Like the sustain, the thickness, it really makes a difference. It packs a punch. And, now so many other people have jumped on board with that, Jeff Loomis and George Lynch and all those guys. So that was very cool. And then that relationship with Stone Tone had Floyd reach out to me, and now everything's cooking with them. Which, it's another one of those no-brainers when you can work with a company like Dean or Floyd Rose that just has such a great reputation and a great brand. It just makes sense. And so we're talking about doing some clinics and things like that. That'd be great. Because that's a product that I so much believe in. I've been using them since I was a little kid. And there's a lot of good stuff on the market. Like Kaler was talking to me at one point. I have a Kaler on one of my guitars, but Floyd, man, you just can't beat them. You really can't.
Agreed, 100%. I'm a Floyd player. Agreed. Well, in Stone Tone there again too. I put one of those granite blocks on my carven view, and it was insane. You know what it did for just everything across the board. I was a little skeptical at first. I'll admit, like you, but I don't know. I was mind boggled on what it could do for my playing and my styles, harmonics especially. Just mind boggling.
Cool.
Well, clinics is also no new thing for you. You've done clinics and stuff in the past, right?
Yeah, I really enjoy them because it's something that I got a lot out of. I'm all about paying it forward to the younger dudes because all this knowledge that us older guys have accumulated, you know, it would suck if it just like went by the wayside and disappeared. I'm all about putting it out there and letting people use it, and because that's how I got it. All my heroes, like I learned how to do whammy bar squeals and stuff like that from Dimebag, and as he's teaching it, he's giving props to Eddie Van Halen, the one he learned it from. So I've taught it to other people, and they'll teach it to somebody else, and they'll say, "Hey, Reffett told me this." So on and on it goes. It's kind of a beautiful synergy that exists in our guitar community, and yeah, it's a good thing. So the way I do them is it's probably not anything different than most people do. I play my ass off. I give them everything I've got, and as many questions as they have. Because for me, you know, it depends on the crowd, but sometimes it'll be very very question and answer based. Because I remember seeing one with Joe Satriani, and he didn't play a note, and people were really pissed. And I was like, dude, if you want to hear him play, you've got his CDs. When are you ever going to get and sit and listen to the guy talk and give you business advice and things like that? It just doesn't happen. So yeah, I love doing them. They're fun.
Very cool. Very cool. Um, we've discussed across the board from your starts and where you've the journey you've taken. What's next for Dave?
Um, there's an album. Let me see. I guess I would call it an EP. There's a great drummer named Steve Tobin who was in Carnivore with Peter Steele from Type O Negative. We have a project that is pretty much done except for the vocals. So I hope to get that out at some point. I'm thinking about doing a guitar instrumental album, and I'm thinking about doing another vocal record. So it really comes down to time and things like that. And to be honest with you, I sort of go where the love is. And with the recorded music area of the world, there's just, man, there's no money in recorded music anymore. To make an original album and put it out there now, it's basically like getting a stack of money and setting it on fire and watching it burn. Because you can work your ass off on something, and the piracy is so bad that you're not going to recoup that money. So when somebody calls me and says, "Hey, dude, I'll give you X amount of money to go do a DVD or whatever," I cannot turn that stuff down. A, because it's good money, and B, because I love it. I love doing that stuff anyway. So I shot a DVD last year for Guitar World that's doing really good. Metal and thrash rhythm guitar. You can get that at guitarworld.com/store. And then we're shooting a new one this year. I've also been doing some management. I manage a great artist named Annie Grunwald. Annie Shred on YouTube is her name. And then I've been doing some PR work for some different artists. So back to some of the music business sort of stuff that I used to do. So I love that stuff. Um, but having said that, I definitely want to do some more recording. It's just I have to do it when it feels right, if that makes any sense. I don't want
Right
to,
on.
I don't want to do it when it feels rushed. Like, in my opinion, you want to do something when you have something to say. Because what'll happen is you get bands that they'll rush an album out and it really sounds like it's rushed out and it doesn't really connect because they didn't have time to write it properly or whatever.
Very cool, very cool. With all that you just were talking about the music industry and stuff, what advice would you give to an inspiring musician out there just getting their feet wet?
You know, it's such a huge question. I'll put it this way. Um, I would probably give different advice. Like if I was talking to my 18-year-old daughter, okay, which I don't have an 18-year-old daughter, but let's pretend I do. If I was talking to my 18-year-old daughter, I would say, babe, it's a bad, bad, bad place out there. You know, get something you can make some money. You know, go to Harvard Business School and get like a real gig that you can make some real money, have health insurance, you know, all that kind of stuff that, you know, me and you now we're older, John. So we understand all this stuff. But, you know, I remember when I was a kid, I wasn't thinking about stuff like that. I just wanted to rock and roll. But then you start to get older and the realities of the world kick in and you're like, damn, dude, what am I going to do? You know, and I would tell them, you know, do you want to be renting a place your entire life? Do you want to be sleeping on somebody's couch your entire life? No, you don't want those kinds of things. You know, that's kind of the way the world is right now is you're lucky if you're able to afford a place to rent all the time. But sort of the world wants to keep you that way. They want to keep you poor and stupid so that your money's just going down the drain and you have just enough. But you need to flip the script and, you know, buy your own place, have your own equity, you know, that sort of thing, be protected. So that's the advice I would give to like say a daughter or a family member is I would say run, right? Run like hell from the music business. I'm serious. I would tell them, you know, get a real gig, make real money, have a place, have security and safety, and then you know, and then you can build a studio. You can build a studio in your garage and have 50 guitars and do it for fun. Do it because you love it. Don't do it because you need something to eat, right? But at the same time, you know, if I was talking to my best friend or something, I might, you know, it depends on how talented that person is too. You know, that plays a big factor. Like if I'm talking to one of my best friends and I really believe in them and they're really talented, I would say, dude, go for it. You know, you fucking rock. I'm sure you'll be fine. If it's really what you want, go for it. Just understand all the parameters of the reality of it. You know, there might be years and years and years you're not really making any real money. You might you might never make any real money. That's the reality of the music business. Um, so it's a tricky situation, you know.
Very well put. I've asked that question to a lot of artists. I don't think anybody has answered it better than you have across
Thanks.
the board.
We could go for days on it. I mean, there's so much to that. You know what I mean?
Oh, agreed, agreed, agreed. Well, and I could talk to you forever. Like I said, you've got such a great head on your shoulders. It's very, very impressive career. I can't wait to see where you go from here. It's been an honor talking to you, but I don't want to keep you all day, man. I know you're busy, and by everything we talked about, you're insanely busy. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today, Dave.
For sure, brother. Thank you, man.